Every club.
Every day.
The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Alright, lads and lasses and everybody in between. This is the Daily Newcastle. My name is Michael Grahamslaw, and today we are here to talk about Newcastle United's fixture against Tottenham Hotspur on Tuesday the 2nd of December, which ended in a 2-2 draw. A lot happened during the game, particularly in the second half, but before we will begin, let's talk about the context of the game a little bit. While back-to-back wins hadn't really improved our league position, it certainly improved our perspective on the league table. Only 6 points separated Newcastle from going from the top three, and 18 points were available in December. Every game appeared winnable, particularly this one. The first of that run, obviously, was Spurs at home. We'd won 6 out of the last 7 meetings between the sides, scoring 20, conceding 8. And as Spurs were, winless domestically since we beat them in the League Cup in October, it was safe to say we're feeling pretty confident going into the game. But starting 11, 2 changes. Anthony Elanga out for Jacob Murphy. Bruno Guimaraes out for Sandro Tonali. Decent rotational options between the two players. A lot of games in December. Not surprised by that at all. Was a little bit surprised that Lewis Miley and Dan Burn kept their places in the starting lineup. There's a lot of quality in those two positions if you're going to rotate. I'm glad Miley started, had a decent game, but I thought maybe we'd see Fabian Schär come in for Dan Burn. But despite expectations, it didn't really kick off, and the game didn't really play out as Newcastle United fans would have hoped. We'll start off. We began in Newcastle's favour with Lewis Hall and Nick Voltemada firing off target in the first 5 minutes. But the game plan from Spurs from minute 1 was obvious. Absorb pressure and hit Newcastle United on the break, and that's why Mickey van der Ven wasn't playing for the more. He came out for the more compact and vital in the end, Christian Romero. Spurs played with 3 defensive midfielders and dropped Richarlison for the pacey Randall Kolo Muani. And then if Newcastle had any fast breaks coming off a Tottenham counter-attack, they would make fouls. Tottenham didn't make that many fouls over the course of the entire game, but they made 8 in that first 23 minutes, and all 8 actually came from different players. So if there's ever a strategy to calm the crowd down and disrupt the game, it was on show in that first 25 minutes. What we were seeing was Newcastle's pressing style looking to limit the time that Spurs have on the ball in potentially dangerous areas and force mistakes against Tottenham's hold firm, hit on the counter style of play, which it's well known that Newcastle United do struggle against deeper defences. Some call it the low block. I don't think we really saw a low block as such today, but it was pretty close at times. It comes as no surprise that Thomas Frank set Spurs up to capitalise on Newcastle's weaknesses. And in the end, the game plan worked, but it didn't work any better than what it did in that first 30 minutes, where, I'll be honest, it was just a really tedious game to watch. Very few chances created from either side. Newcastle sort of burst into the game a little bit. Well, I say Newcastle. Joe Linton bursts into the game with a strong run on the right-hand side, hits the ball across goal and hits the post. But then it was Spurs that woke up, and Newcastle, who were a little bit behind going into half-time. One of those where I think it's Mohamed Kudus who beats Lewis Hall on the left-hand side. We do see that a little bit throughout the game. And then Bergwall flicks the ball goalwards. If he gets a little bit less contact on it, it probably drifts in. And you kind of hope that would have woke everybody up. But no, the first half remained absolutely diabolical, to be honest, and the two sides went in level. I'll be honest, the first half was absolutely dreadful. At half-time, all the neutrals had turned the game over to Fulham versus Manchester City, and probably rightfully so. What a game that looked. But however, as a Newcastle United fan, you and I, well, we stay to watch the Mags, and it's well known we love self-inflicting punishments, and, well, actually, that's maybe a spoiler for later. But I'm going to go into the second half, and I want to go through the second half all in one. So we are going to go to a bit of an earlier advert. Bionic, once again, check them out.
Your body is unique. And Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionic, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionic provide 100% tailor-made supplements designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionic. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
In the second half, there was a change to the lineup, and it's probably one that we didn't expect. Sandro Tonali, who had just come back into the side, came off for Bruno Guimaraes. And as I say, it wasn't really the change I was clamouring for. I really wanted to see maybe a Jacob Ramsey come on, or Anthony Elanga. Both of whom I felt could offer something during the game, but it was Bruno Guimaraes who came on. I wouldn't have particularly took Tonali off either, but anytime Bruno comes onto the pitch, I'm a happy man, and it did turn out to be a good substitution from Newcastle. But the second half, we started strong. Barnes breezed past his man, forced a save from Vicario from close range, and then Nick Volamana had a header cleared off the line by Kevin Danso. But after that, it followed pretty much in the same vein as the first half. And yeah, everyone was starting to get a little bit sleepy. I think you could have heard a pin drop in St. James's Park, unfortunately. But Howe wasn't very happy. He made some changes. He brought on the two Anthonys, Anthony Gordon and Anthony Elanga, for Harvey Barnes and Jacob Murphy to try and make something happen. But just before that, seeing the two wingers come on, Newcastle had a corner, cleared out as far as Livramento, low driving range, great effort, cleared off the line once again, this one by Brennan Johnson. So Newcastle were pushing, and it was Captain Fantastic Bruno Guimaraes that gave Newcastle United the lead with a moment of brilliance, to be honest. A great run from Anthony Gordon, beats Pedro Porro. Bentancur tries to get up the match for him for pace. He hasn't got a chance. Gordon drives it low for Nick Volamara, who beautifully lays it off for Bruno Guimaraes, and he just fires the ball across goal into the bottom right corner. Absolutely fantastic stuff to give Newcastle the lead, and it looked like they would get a second. Gordon firing in another low cross. Spurs failed to clear, but Lewis Miley could only fire it straight at Vicario, who did well to save it, to be honest, even though it is straight at him. Did well to get down. But the next goal, yeah, it went to Spurs. Kudus got the better of Lewis Hall once again. This time, feigning left, feigning right. Just doesn't even get past Hall, really. Hall just gives him the space to curl in across, and Romero gets ahead of Dan Burn to put a diving header beyond Aaron Ramsdale. Very, very poor defending from Newcastle, and after Spurs scored from their first shot on target, almost as quickly were Newcastle back in front. After a penalty from another corner, Bentancur, once again, the main troublemaker for Spurs. And this is a controversial one, really. Some say it's not a penalty. I wholeheartedly think it is. I've seen Dan Burn give something very similar away a few seasons back. Bentancur isn't looking at Dan Burn whatsoever. He's just trying to tackle him. He's trying to stop him from getting the ball. He rugby tackles Dan Burn, and he gives away a penalty. He gives away a penalty, and it's one of those where you are looking at it and going, I mean, that should be a penalty, but we've seen them not given almost every game. This one went to VAR review, and Newcastle got lucky. And then I'm sitting there and I'm watching Anthony Gordon pick up the ball, and I'm going, yeah, it's okay. He's gonna hand it off to Nick Volamada, and everything's gonna be fine. And then Gordon steps up to the penalty spot, and I'm thinking, no, man, don't do it. Give it to Nick Voltemada. I have seen you take penalties and Everton has not gone out my mind. But this one was a bit more like the ones we'd seen against the likes of Man City, where he absolutely buried it into the right side of the goal. And you're thinking, Anthony Gordon has just won Newcastle the game there. Absolutely brilliant. We're going to go on and win. We're going to go up to, I think it was 7th in the table, 1 point behind our rivals, Sunderland, and a few points off those Champions League spots. And then it happened again. Just when you think Newcastle have the game won, we go and mess it up. Romero, the benefactor once again, in the box. He does pull down Malik Chow, but it is, to be honest, 6 and 2 threes. They're both going at each other. It's not a foul in my opinion. Romero reacts quickest, gets up, hits an overhead kick from well outside the 6-yard box. It goes through Malik Chow, who's getting back to his feet and can't adjust appropriately, and desperately beyond the diving Aaron Ramsdale. So that's, you couldn't believe we conceded when you look at it. It's such a terrible, terrible goal to concede, and that was that. Newcastle United 2, Tottenham Hotspur 2 is how it ended. 2 shots on target, 2 goals for Spurs, and if anything, they looked more likely to win the game in the latter stages. And Newcastle have officially dropped more points from winning positions this season than any other side. But overall, if the first half was boring, the last 30 minutes certainly woke everyone up. And Spurs will have left St James's Park the happier of the two sides. Neither side really deserved the win, but it's 2 points dropped. And a little stat for you as well. If Newcastle United hadn't dropped any points from winning positions this season, I'll give you a couple of seconds to think where we would be. Well, that's enough. Yep, Newcastle United would be tied with Arsenal at the top of the table. Now, what the famous saying is, if my gran had wheels, she'd be a bike. And, well, she probably would be. And Newcastle probably still wouldn't be at the top of the table, particularly with the way we've played. But you just have to sit and think about all the narrow games we've had where we've missed out on the smallest of margins, from Villa on the opening day of the season, Alanga missing that one-on-one, to a Romero overhead kick in our most recent game. But that's all from us here on the Daily Newcastle. I've been Michael Grahamslaw. We'll be back tomorrow with more content, a full review of the game. Check us out wherever you find your podcasts, on our social media platforms at GSPN Newcastle, or even on the radio by checking out NUFC Talk TV radio station. But for now, it's goodbye.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.